Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the All In Podcast. This is episode number 53. I am one of the co-hosts of the All In Podcast, Mike Badzik, joined by my guy, Eli Cooper. What's up, buddy?
What's up, man? Not much. NBA offseason has begun with a bang, man. They came out guns blazing.
No, they definitely did. And, yesterday, so our viewers and that I'm a golf guy, I was kind of on sports overload this weekend with the Masters and trying to pay attention to college football and NFL football, which had a ton of good games. And then in comes the NBA offseason stuff in the middle of November, which, of course, NBA offseason is always the best offseason.
Yeah,
and it has not disappointed so far. So we're going to get into those topics, NFL topics, today on this podcast. Do want to mention the All In Podcast is presented by MyBookie.ag. Head on over to MyBookie.ag. Use the promo code ALLINPOD for a 100% sign-up bonus to whatever you deposit. 100% sign-up bonus from MyBookie.ag. Just use that promo code ALLINPOD to get it and let them know that we sent you. So head on over there and you can, there's some interesting prop bets that you can place on there. One of them is Phoenix Suns to make or miss the playoffs. And those odds are going to go up today with the announcement that CP3 has been traded to the Suns. I think it's a deal that probably makes sense for both sides. What were your thoughts on CP3 to the Suns?
Well, for one, I don't know that the report about him coming to the Suns came, I think, yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
But I think just in general, the CP3 trade, we kind of forecasted when Billy Donovan got fired.
Yeah.
Or resigned, whatever you want to call it, and which we talked about on Couch Coach Live when we made our appearance on there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just a matter of where at this point would he end up. And I'm a little surprised that the Suns, when I first heard this report that they were pursuing this, because CP3 doesn't necessarily fit their timeline as far as the rest of their roster. Like, they're an incredibly young team. Booker's not even 24, I don't think yet, or
right.
25. And obviously DeAndre Ayton's only going to be in his third year this year.
Yep.
Miles Bridges will be in his second. Guys like that, which is like the main part of their core. And granted, he certainly makes them a lot better. Like, I love the fit that he has with this team. I think him and DeAndre Ayton in pick and rolls will be great. I think it will move Devin Booker off the ball more and allow him to, play without the basketball and not hinder him when he does play with the ball in his hands. CP3 can play without the ball. He's done it, for a lot of the last 3 years.
Yep.
So he has less of a problem relinquishing the ball than he did earlier in his career. So the fit is really good there with their two stars, in my opinion. And I love Miles Bridges. I think he's a good two-way small forward. I like Cam Johnson at the 4 as a stretch 4. I like Dario Saric. I believe he's still there. Not sure what his contract situation is. As another stretch forward, like, they have a nice nucleus. However, they're in the West. So with the Warriors getting healthy and with a number 2 pick, which we'll get into later in this NBA part, the Lakers are obviously going to be good again. And we'll talk about the move that they made. Obviously Houston likely, we don't know what's going to happen in Houston. We know OKC is not going to be in a playoff spot. But Dallas is up and coming. Memphis is up and coming. Like, Portland, I think, is going to be better this year, I would hope, than what they were. So, like, it's going to be a battle out west.
Yeah.
And the Suns will be in it. They'll be in the mix.
Well, I think absolutely they will be in it, right? And I think this trade makes sense for the Suns. I think they kind of have to do it. I think if because you mentioned that he doesn't really fit their timeline. Like, he definitely doesn't, right? He's probably in his head thinking, I've got 3 or 4 years left. Maybe let's get a championship here. We're running out of time. And the Suns probably aren't the best avenue to do that. But when you look at what he did with OKC last year, kind of the same situation. When he got traded there, we all were thinking, well, he's going to get traded again because why would this young team want him? And that was even more of a rebuilding this Suns team is right now.
Yeah.
So maybe the idea is, well, we'll bring him in. He teaches Devin Booker some leadership stuff, moves him off the ball a little bit more. And he's really, really good, right? He's an all-NBA player last year.
Yeah.
So I think the Suns are looking at it, and they're like, we haven't made the playoffs in a long time. We need to do something soon, or we are going to end up the next Seattle franchise. So let's accelerate this a little bit. And I think it's a great move for them. They didn't give up too much, as this news was happening. I don't know if we talked about it. I know me and Todd had talked about it, and it kind of was like, well, you're going to give up Oubre, you're going to give up Rubio for the contract. Right. Is it worth giving up the 10th pick this year? Because I think the Suns have the 10th pick. And we kind of were like, well, Chris Paul's 37. I wouldn't want to give up that 10th pick. But right. I think it's a 2022 first-round pick now.
It is. They did not give that pick up.
They did not. And if you're the Suns, I think you're betting on, 2022, we should be better. Certainly than the 10th pick if this goes as planned. So I think I like it from that perspective as well. OKC was looking to move him. I don't know if this was the spot that they were going to get the most out of the trade, but I don't know who could have offered more. And certainly teams had a long time to think about this. So I'm sure whoever wanted to make an offer would have made an offer that was better.
Right. And, the thing is, and maybe that's something I didn't consider, even though he doesn't fit their timeline. What if they're looking at a Killian Hayes, a Cole Anthony, someone like that in this 10th spot who's not going to be an immediate impact, right? However, when Chris Paul's time to go comes, you would elevate one of those guys into, that point guard spot and have a long-term answer for your backcourt with Devin Booker and a Killian Hayes or Cole Anthony. I don't know that the other point guard from Iowa State, Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
I don't know that he falls that far, but if he does, he's in play there. So Kira Lewis.
Or you're looking at it and you're like, well, we kept that 10th pick. We're trying to do this year. We really want to make a push this year. We can move that for something else, or trade down, and get another nice role player, because they're going to lose Oubre, who was a really good role player. So maybe there's still moves to be made for the Suns. But I think if you're a Phoenix fan, you have to love this move.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So what's the ceiling then? What are we thinking? What's okay, how about we'll do it this way. What's the best seed the Suns could be in this year's playoffs? And what's your kind of expectation also?
So just, off the top of my head, I think you can book the Lakers and the Nuggets and the Clippers, depending on what they do in the top three, I would say. I think the Warriors are back in the top five, all being healthy. I would still take the Warriors over this Suns team, I think, depending on what happens in these next couple of days.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of a toss-up for like 5 through 8.
Right.
I think they're better than the Mavs now. I would think they're better than the Grizzlies. I think they're better than Portland. Mm-hmm. I'm expecting Houston to fall out of this with what's being rumored to happen there. So I think that opens up a spot. Obviously, OKC falls out. So, I think 5 seed, 4 seed, maybe.
Well, I was kind of thinking about this, and I'm like, okay, I know the Thunder overachieved last year, but if you just matched up the Suns roster right now with that Oklahoma City roster, the Suns is way better. Way better. And Oklahoma City was the 5 seed last year with Houston ahead of them.
Yeah.
So really, my thought was, and the Warriors, I think, I would expect the Warriors to be a top 4 seed if they stay healthy, which is not a guarantee for that team, given the last couple of years and all of those guys, all 3 of those guys they're going to have, and we don't know what move they're going to make.
Yep.
So I would say the highest the Suns could go is the 3 seed. I think that's the highest they could. I think, the Nuggets, we do love the Nuggets, and they're a great regular season team year after year. And this year they were a really good playoff team. I don't think it's inconceivable that the Suns could have a better record than them. I think if they jumped unless the Clippers sell Paul George and they kind of have a blow up, I think it's going to be tough for them to pass them. But of course, the Lakers. I think that'd be the highest. I probably would expect them in that 4 to 6 range.
Yeah.
Which would be Assuming that the Nuggets are ahead of them, and then the Warriors probably are ahead of them. But then you kind of have, the Jazz, the Mavs, the Suns, and then we don't know what's going to happen with Houston, as we're about to discuss right now. But they could definitely make noise. They'll be in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
It'd be a shock if they didn't make the playoffs. So
yeah.
All right, let's go to our next topic, which is James Harden and Houston. Reports are he is wanting out of Houston, and he is requesting a trade. His two destinations he has picked are Brooklyn, which would be insane, and Philadelphia to team up with his old friend Daryl Morey. And probably that would mean a Ben Simmons move. I would think he would probably be the guy involved in that package. I don't know for sure, but you would think. So what do we think about both of those propositions?
So I think the Sixers make more sense than the Nets do from a fit perspective. And I think the Sixers also have more to offer when you talk about a Ben Simmons, being, or even if, Daryl Morey has never been a guy that loves centers. So even if you're talking about an Embiid going the other ways, I don't know how you hold on to both. Because you don't really have the picks, or maybe you're. I certainly wouldn't want to sacrifice Matisse for this, so I don't know.
For Harden, you wouldn't want to sacrifice Matisse for Harden.
Well, I don't love Harden for the Sixers in general. I really don't. I don't, especially with.
I think you have to sacrifice him though.
Yeah, I mean you would. That's what I'm saying. But you'd also Josh Richardson's is definitely gone. Yeah. And you got to do something with the Horford. Horford's probably gone just to make the contracts work as well. So maybe you can hold on to Matisse if you're giving up Josh Richardson. I don't know. Or maybe Josh Richardson has to stay because of cap. I haven't done the trade machine thing or anything like that. But I think the Sixers overall are the better fit here. Assuming even if they keep Ben and Embiid, I think he fits better with them than he does with Kyrie and KD. The Nets seem like a disaster waiting to happen to me from a Kyrie and James Harden backcourt on both ends of the floor. You're talking about a super ball dominant shooting guard. And Kyrie's reason for leaving Cleveland was to be the man. Yeah. And now he teamed up with KD. That was already unlikely for him to be the guy. And now you're talking about James Harden, who is better than Kyrie, if you ask me. Yes. I don't think that's a stretch by any of them. So now you're third fiddle. What you know what I mean? How did that work out for you? And maybe he's kind of gotten over that. I don't know, but I just don't. And you're talking about two ball dominant guards, and then KD, who's not ball dominant at all, but he still needs the touches. You know what I mean? He still wants to play in isolation. That's a lot of isolation in pick and roll basketball, which is how's that really different than what you're doing in Houston? Granted, the guys that you're doing it with are better, but I don't know that I love that fit for him from a championship perspective. There's only one basketball at the end of the day. I know people kind of hate that analogy now, but it's true, and none of these guys. Besides KD has really proven that they can consistently play without the basketball in their hands and still be effective.
Yeah.
So
I just think if he goes to the Nets, that's 3 top 7 players in the league, top 8 players in the maybe Kyrie's closer to top 10 or top 12. But that's going to be really tough to beat for anybody. I know there's only one basketball, and I know that, but historically, when we've seen guys team up like that and they're really, really good like this, they make it work. Now, I don't know about Kyrie. He seems to have issues making things work. I don't know about Harden, how he would, we've seen him work with KD before, they're former teammates, obviously, but that was a completely different James Harden.
Yeah,
now that he's been this guy for the past 4 years, how does he adjust to maybe not being that guy anymore? I think in Philly he has the opportunity to go in and still be that guy, which maybe he prefers that, but maybe he looks at it and says, Brooklyn, I want to win a championship. That's kind of what's missing from the from the mantle right now. I think the big question, I mean, I know, Brooklyn, New York has a good reputation. Like, everybody knows about it. I think you'd be able to answer this better compared to New York. Philly, what's the strip club scene like? Is it top notch? Because that's a big factor in his decision.
Oh man, I'm pretty sure New York's is better.
Probably, right?
I'm pretty sure.
So that makes sense, right?
I'm not 100. I've never actually been on that scene.
Yeah.
Drake did boast about it in back to back, so that he gave Philly some props there. But if I were to guess, I'd say
guess New York, right? Yeah. We're probably gonna have to outsource. Maybe we'll ask Rob Cooper Senior. He probably knows what's going on there. So that is a big question also. But I think if I'm Harden, I'm looking at it like if I go to the Nets, I don't know who is matching up with us, at least in the East, right? If you're looking at it and saying the Lakers are going to be the Lakers, but like you look at that Eastern Conference and you're like, if I go to the Nets, it's a wrap
for the East. Yeah.
For the
East for sure. Like at the end of the day, their talent would overcome any team in the East that thinks about challenging them. My problem is when they get to, this is a team that when it gets to the finals, that would concern me. And it's just like when you look at it on paper, like, 3 top 15 at bare minimum for Kyrie players, but it's also kind of like, I don't know that we've ever seen James Harden be successful without the basketball in his hands in any kind of role, and that was part of the reason he had to be the sixth man in OKC is because he could not play with Russ and KD. That they did try that starting lineup. It didn't work. And it's because he's the primary ball handler and playmaker. So I just don't know how that works. With Kyrie, who has a little more experience, I guess, playing without the basketball. Obviously he played with LeBron. So, and LeBron's a pretty significant ball dominant player. So I guess Kyrie's making the most sacrifice here again. It's just like that would be. I'm thinking Kyrie's mentality doesn't fit that role anymore.
Well, they hired Steve Nash, which could be good for the Zen. I think maybe they'll have some yoga sessions with Kyrie, KD. They're both into that. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll smoke pot before the games. That'll help everybody's cool heads. No, but seriously, and I mentioned before, like when we've seen guys team up like this, top 3 top 15 guys, like it's been pretty unbeatable. But I think this would be different from the perspective of like, first of all, like we've really never seen, we've only seen a handful of times, 2 or 3 times ever, 3 top guys like this, and one of them had LeBron, who has probably the highest basketball IQ of all time, and the other one was probably with Steph and Clay, who were just fine being off the ball and running around and shooting threes. It's a completely different makeup for a potential Nets team like this.
Yeah. So honestly, I would like to see it happen just so we can like see how does it work. I'm intrigued.
Do you want him in Philly? As a Sixers fan? Do you want him in Philly?
I prefer him in Philly than on the Nets. Yeah. So like at this point, if that's would you give up Ben Simmons? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would. And basically I think he's a way better fit with Embiid than Ben Simmons is. So you kind of eliminate that problem. Yeah. In that case, I think he could actually play with Ben. If he can play with Russ, he can play with Ben.
I think so.
So like, I don't know. I don't love the fit, but I would certainly prefer it to having to get run over by the Nets for years to come. So
yeah. Okay, the last trade that we will talk about that's happened so far is the Dennis Schroeder to the Lakers. Seems like a great move for the Lakers. They gave up the 28th pick, and Danny Green, I think, was also in that deal for Dennis Schroeder.
Danny Green was not included in that deal from what I saw. He was discussed, but it didn't look like he was involved in that trade.
Okay, well, that's even better than for the Lakers. So, seems like a perfect fit.
It does. I don't know that they could have found a better guard to fit this team. Yeah. Given what they severely lacked and was our biggest concern is that they had no pick and roll presence whatsoever. And obviously Dennis Schroeder gives you that right away because he's really good in those situations. And like he's not super ball dominant. He can play without the basketball. So when they need him to, he can. He was really good last year and got a lot better defensively. So he doesn't hurt them on that end of the floor. I thought this was a really good deal for them. I think Danny Green is still going to be on the block as far as in another, maybe involved in another move. And maybe that's why they didn't give him up here. But I think it's an excellent move for the Lakers, who really didn't give up much for him.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Danny Green was included in the deal.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yes,
so Danny Green in the 28th pick then?
Yes, Danny Green in the 28th pick. Which, I mean, he was expendable because you have Avery Bradley.
So they're going to get Bradley and Schroeder added to that championship team. Well, obviously they're going to lose Danny Green, but he was pretty terrible.
Yes, he was.
So
now, KCP opted out, and is expected to have multiple offers. I would think they'd want to keep him for depth purposes. They're expecting to lose Rondo, which was part of the reason they brought Schroeder in. I think with Schroeder coming in, I don't think that hurts you. But Morris is a free agent. Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee are both free agents. I think one of them stays probably McGee.
Yeah.
But
so probably more retooling to do for the Lakers still.
Definitely.
But I think they're going to get better. I think they're not staying put, right? Like this already makes, I think Schroeder now he's at least that third scoring option. That we had talked about plenty of times them needing. Of course, they didn't really need it, it turns out, but certainly doesn't hurt. Okay, let's talk NBA draft. So NBA draft kind of snuck up on us. It's on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So if you're listening on Tuesday, it's tomorrow. No big trades yet. The Timberwolves have the first pick. What do you think they're going to do?
Well, what I think they're going to do and what I think they should do are two different things. Okay. Because at this point, it's looking like they want LaMelo.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the talks of it are increasing, and for the life of me, I can't figure out why. But they want LaMelo. I think they're going to pull the trigger. And here's from a franchise perspective, I understand it. Like, of all the players in this draft, he's the most box office. Like, there's no doubt about it. D'Lo is an intriguing player. You know what I mean? As far as putting butts in the seats. It's obviously Karl Anthony Towns is one of the best bigs in the league.
Yeah.
Despite some of his softness. But, when you're talking about a small market team, it's hard to land a box office guy, if you don't have the number one pick. And maybe that's what they're looking at here. Like, listen, we'll get the guy who's going to put the butts in the seats and hope that he can figure it out with D'Lo. I don't know. That's the only thing I can really think of that they're thinking about here. Because I think it's a no-brainer that Anthony Edwards is the better fit at this number one pick here. I don't know that anyone, even the Timberwolves, would dispute that. But I think they're just kind of looking at the aura that is LaMelo Ball, just not only from, the box office standard that he draws, but also his upside. Like he's a big 6'7", 6'8" point guard whose floor vision has drastically increased since he hit that growth spurt. He's an excellent playmaker, and I think people are just like, I think they might be thinking, if we don't take LaMelo Ball and he blossoms,
right,
how bad are we going to look? Yeah. So, I kind of get it. I kind of get it.
I think upside, it has to be LaMelo Ball. And I also think and I agree with that. It seems like he's going to go number one overall, but I don't know if they necessarily even want him number one overall. But I think if you're the T-Wolves, you might be looking at it and saying, let's just take the best asset, which is something that teams do that a lot. Like it's
yeah.
We don't know who the best player is. We haven't been able to work these guys out. Who's the best asset? Who can we even move later, possibly? Like, there's
Andrew
no guarantee.
Wiggins.
Even Andrew Wiggins. Like, there's no guarantee that if they take LaMelo, he's going to be even on the team the first game of the year. Like, they could still move him. They could still move D'Lo. It's funny that they're going to end up taking him. I think the mock draft we did back in, like, July, we had them taking LaMelo at, like, the 6th pick.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's going to end up happening at 1. I would take Anthony Edwards.
I would too.
Especially if I'm and that's me saying, like, if I'm keeping him, if I want to actually have the guy that I'm going to try to do something with, I think it's Anthony Edwards. I just don't see it from LaMelo Ball, but people like him. Chad Ford, who does a lot of draft stuff, has him number 1 overall right now. So, like, there's something to it. I've just been hearing a lot that it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. The shooting is not there. The defense is not there. The vision is certainly there. The court vision is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. I would go with Anthony Edwards. I think we agree there, right?
Yeah, definitely Anthony Edwards. Again, he's the off the ball player. When you just traded for D'Lo, I think it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to then move D'Lo after taking LaMelo here. I'm assuming they want to play both of them, and to me that seems like a nightmare. But
I don't like that idea.
I don't like it either.
I don't like that idea of trying to play them both together. I think we've seen that not work
so many times. Like,
times, right? Like,
I mean, the best example of two guards like that in a way is Portland, right? Like, CJ and Dame, like two guards who get buckets, but don't play any defense.
Yeah,
they
can both shoot though, and they can both shoot.
Right, exactly.
Where, like, D'Lo can shoot, catch and shoot anyway, but, like, LaMelo cannot shoot. They're gonna have to figure that out. What other potential trades do you predict? Is it the Warriors? Is it the Hornets? Who do you think's making a deal?
Well, with the Russell Westbrook situation, there were reports that Jordan wants him in Charlotte, which, if he doesn't feel that LaMelo is going to fall to him at 3, that makes sense. And I think Houston would be very lucky to get a number 3 pick for Russell Westbrook. I think that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
At that point, when you're possibly thinking about blowing it up. Now, Houston says that they're not necessarily pressed to trade either Harden or Russ. They want to make it work. But we'll see how that plays out. So Hornets could be moving their pick. I think Golden State, who I surprisingly haven't heard many rumors one day ahead of the draft.
No. I don't think they're out there, though.
Yeah, I mean, they're out there, but there's no watch bombs. There's no Shams bombs being dropped on what's going to happen with that pick. So, I think we'll literally have to watch the draft to see if that happens. But I think I think they're 100% content on keeping the pick and taking Wiseman at the 2nd spot, which makes sense. I think he's a great fit for them and what they like to do, and gives them a building piece if the big 3 isn't able to get back to NBA final caliber play. Obviously he gives you a building block to move forward with. So I think that's that's the most intriguing thing to look at right now, is what happens with that number 2 pick, because I don't think they're willing to give it up for anything, but for less than what they see the value as, but also, like, this isn't a super strong draft class, so I don't see a ton of people, like, really wanting to move up to that number 2 spot, unless someone is really, really interested in taking James Wiseman.
Yeah.
I just don't see. I don't see the market. The market isn't super high for that number 2 pick.
No, and it's not. And this is something we've talked about, where it's not a super great draft class at the top. There's no definite superstars, but it seems like there's a lot of role players. So what I could see, and I think it's more likely that Charlotte, if they do the Russell Westbrook trade, I think it probably does not involve the number 3 pick.
Yeah, probably not.
It's probably something else without that. But then if they do that deal, then they're thinking to themselves, "Oh, we got Russell Westbrook. We can get the 7 seed. I guess that's what Russell Westbrook can get you, right?
By himself,
Let's trade back our 3 pick to whoever, OKC. Let's swap with them. Let's do something to try to get another piece. I don't know who it is, but I could see them trading back if they get Russ, if that's what they want to do. That'd be interesting. I also think Russ, probably the reason he wanted out of Houston was he didn't want to play with Harden anymore because he doesn't like being the second fiddle. He wanted to be Russ again. Well, if Harden leaves, then he can be Russ again in Houston. So maybe nothing changes there where he doesn't get traded at all.
Right.
Now the Warriors, I think it's interesting that you're right. Like we haven't heard the rumor about the Warriors, and I think that's intentional. I think that they are giving off like the attitude that they're going to keep the pick and they're going to take James Wiseman or they're going to take Anthony Edwards, whoever's there. That way, if somebody in the draft behind them really wants them, and we've heard Charlotte really likes James Wiseman. We've heard that. So maybe Golden State is saying, we're going to keep the pick. We're going to take James Wiseman at number 2. Like, Charlotte, you sure you don't want to trade up and we'll trade back or something like that? Or maybe it's Atlanta. We've heard Atlanta really likes James Wiseman and Anthony Edwards. So maybe they're saying, Atlanta, we're going to keep it. You want to trade up? Now's your chance. And maybe they end up making a deal where now they're kind of pretending that they want that pick. Maybe they do want it. Maybe they take Wiseman and they're like, he's not going to play a lot this year, but we're thinking long term. Let's try to rebuild as we compete for a championship. One of those attitudes, which we've seen probably is the best method in sports that we've found so far, and as teams try to balance how to rebuild, that's probably the best way to do it, is rebuild as you still try to win, which is hard to do. But when you are a really good team and you end up with a number 2 pick, you have a real opportunity to do that. Teams don't normally get that opportunity, right? Like we've only seen that a couple of times. You think of like 1997, whenever the Spurs were really good, and then Dave Rumsfeld got hurt, and they ended up with the number 1 pick, and they could have traded that pick and built on that good team, but they're like, oh, we'll take Tim Duncan, who's great, and then we'll try to build this as we still compete. Well, they ended up winning the championship in '99, so it worked out really good. Really I don't think James Wiseman is Tim Duncan, and I don't think the Warriors think he's Tim Duncan either. So probably it's more likely they trade that pick. For me, anyway, I think probably that's and I don't know who else. I don't know who else makes the deal. I think Atlanta has got potential to try to trade up to get one of those guys to pair with Trae Young. I think James Wiseman's the one. I think that's the deal that gets done. That's my prediction. Is Atlanta and Golden State work out?
Did Atlanta extend Clinton Capella?
I don't know.
I think that might. I don't know that. I don't think you need Wiseman in that case, or unless you're trying to get Anthony Edwards.
Or Anthony Edwards. They like Edwards.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that makes sense. And also would then, make the Hornets want to move back because I can't. Well, they actually the Hornets apparently like Wiseman.
Or Detroit.
So,
Detroit too.
Yeah,
Detroit could want to move up, or they could. They got the 7th pick. They could ship that to Houston for Russ and do a Russ Blake Griffin thing. That could be a thing, I guess. That could get you the 6 or 7 seed in the East.
That would have been great in 2009 as far as dunks.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Knicks, and the Knicks are always gonna try to do something stupid.
Yes.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they gave up a load for Russ as well.
100%.
And the Spurs.
Last thing.
Yeah.
Before we move on to our NFL topics,
yes,
that we could see, and it was one of the things discussed in the Suns trade, is that they had to give up a 2022 pick. Yeah. So the thinking behind the league and why OKC probably didn't pursue their top 10 pick or didn't make that a requirement in this trade is because one, this draft class isn't at the number 10 spot isn't super deep. Although OKC probably could have got a valuable player, but if you're going into a rebuild, you don't need that. What they're probably actually looking at is one, the 2021 class is going to be really good. Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, a lot of good guys coming into that class. But the 2022 class could be super intriguing because the draft that eligibility age.
Oh, it's a double year.
I think they're thinking very strongly that by 2022, you will be allowed to come out of high school again, which would open the door for Chet Holmgren, who's a senior right now, coming out of high school, who is one of the top. Actually, he's the top player in that class. So that opens up the door for him coming straight out of high school. Or I'm sorry, 2022. Actually, he would be in the 20. Yeah, he would be coming out of college because he would be late. But Imoni Bates, the kid from Michigan who draws a lot of KD comparisons, would then be able to come out of high school in 2022 instead of waiting until 2023. He has committed to Michigan State, but obviously that changes if the NBA says he can come out of high school. So I think that's widely known around league front offices that, hey, 2022 draft class could have 2 studs in it.
Yeah.
So obviously you'd want to load up on picks in that draft.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up our NBA discussion then. I think that's all we had for NBA stuff right now.
Yep.
Okay, we are going to take a quick break on the audio. If you are watching on YouTube, go ahead and click over to the NFL video that we just posted along with this one. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and head to allinnetwork.net for all the latest updates with the All In Network.
Yep. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you in the second video.